You have to see this. The Ukrainian armed forces infiltrated the rear of the Russian army in the Sumy region and eliminated 8 personnel. Sensational news. Putin's daughter publicly condemned her father and declared that he ruined her life. The Kremlin is preparing a final strike. The airspace over the Kapustyn Yar testing ground has been closed to the Orlan drones. The head of the office of the president of Ukraine stated that the war could end by the end of this week. And Putin is finally ready to meet with Zelensky. Hello, my name is Karina Klishunyi, and right now here are the top stories. But first, please like this video and subscribe to our channel so we don't lose touch with you on YouTube. The front. Our soldiers continue to fight for our independence, and quite successfully. In the past 24 hours, the armed forces of Ukraine have eliminated more than 1,000 Russians and are actively destroying their equipment. The General Staff reported that they destroyed a Russian S-300 surface-to-air missile system with a single strike on a Russian facility in the temporarily occupied territory of the Zaporizhzhia region.
The elimination of this target significantly reduces the enemy's long-range firepower and decreases their ability to shell the positions of Ukraine's defense forces and the region's civilian infrastructure.
The fighters of the 427th Separate Unmanned Systems Regiment caught a Russian Solnsepyak at night, which had just fired and was returning from a combat mission. A prime target. But the good drones were flying not only at the front. The Ukrainian armed forces also attacked Russian cities and set fire to an oil depot in Kuban. Some Russians even seem to enjoy this themselves. But let's get back to the front. There's something else interesting there. We recently reported on how our soldiers in the Pokrovsk direction started noticing women taking part in assaults. At first, these were isolated cases. However, later on, our drones recorded an entire group of women attempting to storm positions during assaults. Of course, our fighters eliminated them. Yesterday, Zelensky was in the Kharkiv region, where the military reported to him. More and more often, they are not fighting Russians there.
The soldiers in this direction are recording the participation in the war of mercenaries from China, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Pakistan, and African countries. Will we respond?
It seems that ethnic Russians are running out. Moreover, Ukrainian intelligence officers reported that they have completely stopped the Russian advance in the Sumy region. More than 8 companies of occupiers have been destroyed. This is the work of Timur's Special Forces unit. The advance has been stopped and the supply and ammunition delivery have been disrupted. But Putin continues to wage war, and our front line is very long. As deep state analysts point out, the Russians have already crossed into the Dnipropetrovsk region. It has also become known that the Russians have upgraded their Shahed drones to destroy peaceful Ukrainian cities and civilians. Now, this type of drone can carry 2 cassettes with anti-tank mines. This is what they look like. Such Shaheds have already been spotted in several of our regions. These mines are equipped with magnetic detonators and are triggered when vehicles pass nearby. The enemy is also increasing the number of airstrikes and drone attacks on the positions of Ukraine's defenders. In just one day, the enemy carried out about 200 attacks using more than 740 munitions. The Ukrainian army is heroically holding the front despite the fact that the enemy significantly outnumbers them. Ukrainians are true heroes. Support them with a kind word in the comments. I know they're watching us. There are some reasonable people among the Putins. A man who has taken millions of lives and destroyed mine. That's exactly how Putin's illegitimate daughter described him. Her name is Luisa Rozova. She is in fact Putin's secret illegitimate daughter. For the first time, she openly spoke about her origins, her family, and life in French exile. Although before this, she stayed away from political topics and didn't comment on anything. Rozova was born on March 3, 2003 in St. Petersburg as Elizaveta Krivonogik. On Luisa's birth certificate, the father field is blank. However, she is widely recognized. She currently lives in Paris, graduated from an art academy, and has been involved in curating anti-war exhibitions. Back in 2022, when the full-scale war in Ukraine began, she shared her thoughts about it on Instagram.
Would you like to hear my opinion about the events that are happening in the world right now? To be honest, I can't even imagine what consequences await me after saying this. First of all, I want to say that I personally am categorically opposed to any kind of violence against defenseless people. I'm genuinely surprised that some people seriously believe that I am involved in the events happening in the world, and that I supposedly have some incredible ability to change everything. Let's think together and answer this question for ourselves. Would a person who is so insane as to literally declare war on the whole world really abandon their decisions because of some parental feelings? Let everyone answer this question for themselves.
Yes, she condemns the war and made it clear that her insane father obviously won't listen to her. She revealed her face online and wrote the following post. It's so wonderful to show my face to the world again. Every day it reminds me of who I was born as and who destroyed my life. A person who took millions of lives and ruined mine. Of course, she didn't mention Putin's last name, but everyone understood what she meant. The girl started getting hate online because of her father's actions. That's why she hid her page. But before that, she wrote a post with a question. Is she really responsible for the actions of her family who don't even listen to her? Later, there was an equally mysterious post.
And among all the mysteries of the earth, I want to understand what is wrong with the reality around me.
She hid her face for a very long time because she looks a lot like her dictator father and her sisters.
To reveal yourself and hide, only for the photo to end up being published anyway.
Later in her stories, she asked people not to write to her anymore since she would no longer comment on anything. Before this, the Russian opposition had repeatedly criticized Rozova for her public life on social media with elements of luxury. She posted photos in designer clothes. She flew on private jets and worked as a DJ in trendy clubs. After February 2022, according to her, she left Russia, cut off all social ties, and now lives in a gilded cage.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
As reported by Bild journalists, people around her in Paris describe Luisa as very sweet and do not consider her responsible for her parents' actions. Why do you think she suddenly decided to talk about her experiences to the whole world? Share your guesses in the comments. I always read your comments. After the last video, I found out that we have a lot of viewers from Kazakhstan and the USA. Thank you so much for your support. Let me know in the comments today which country you're watching from. And I'm curious, are there any Russian viewers whose brains haven't yet been devoured by Putin's propaganda? Or are there none left? I'm looking forward to your comments. Putin is once again preparing to launch the Orieshnik. Russia has closed the airspace over the Kapustyn Yar test site in the Astrakhan region, which is where Orieshnik missile launches used to take place. This happened against the backdrop of statements by American President Donald Trump about relocating nuclear submarines closer to Russia. Russia has closed its airspace over the test site for 4 days, from August 4th to 8th. Against this backdrop, Russia has also abandoned restrictions on the deployment of ground-based intermediate and shorter-range missiles. This was officially announced by the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. This means that Russia can now deploy such missiles anywhere, including the European part of the country. This effectively increases the risk of a new arms race in Europe and Asia. However, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov had already spoken about Russia's intention to withdraw from this agreement back in December of last year. However, as Andriy Kovalenko, head of the Center for Countering Disinformation, says, this withdrawal is purely a formality and nothing significant will change.
Russia has withdrawn from the moratorium on the deployment of intermediate and shorter-range missiles. It's a formality because they've been on standby since 2019 anyway, and the Iskanders were already in Crimea back then. Overall, this step will not change the balance of power at all. Except that Moscow will be able to keep scaring the guys in Belarus, the ones whose missile didn't take off during the second launch.
So is this a threat of nuclear war or just another round of nuclear intimidation? But most likely Putin simply doesn't know how to respond to the fact that the Ukrainian military is successfully fighting back. Moreover, Putin is already prepared for talks, and during the conversation he wants to pull an ace out of his sleeve. In other words, that very ace is supposed to put him in a more advantageous position. The head of the president's office, Andriy Yermak, commented on the Kremlin's statement about its readiness to hold a meeting between Putin and Zelensky. Here's how this is being presented in Russia.
All the preparatory work for such a meeting has not yet been done. And I want to remind you that the president himself constantly does not rule out the possibility of such a meeting after the necessary part of the work is completed at the expert level.
In Ukraine, people do not believe the empty promises of the Russians.
Peskov's statement about a possible meeting looks like yet another stalling tactic because it contains no specifics at all. Ukraine's position is clear. We are ready for a meeting of the leaders. If the issue is only about preparations, that's not on us. We're ready at any moment. But endlessly not ruling out vague dates is unacceptable.
But alongside the Kremlin's uncertainty, Yermak is convinced that already this week the world will have a chance to end the war.
Later this week, the world may get an opportunity to stop the war that Russian President Vladimir Putin is waging against Ukraine. President Donald Trump has made it clear that Russia will soon face serious consequences if it does not immediately come to the negotiating table. By shortening the previous 50-day period to 10 days last week, the US president sent Putin an unmistakable signal. These signals must be followed by decisive actions to end the war.
Ukraine's Minister of Foreign Affairs Andriy Sybiga also believes in ending the war. According to him, Ukraine is determined to achieve a just and lasting peace already this year. And what about you? Do you believe in Yermak's prediction? What do you think Trump will do after the 10 days given to Putin are up? Russians, are you asleep? Last night, the Rostov region was attacked by drones. The railway infrastructure was hit. They say it was the Tatsynska railway station. It is through this station that logistics and the operation of the Tatsynska oil depot are ensured. The monitoring group Krymsky Veter in turn reports that a traction substation was attacked. Unfortunately, Russians also attacked the Ukrainian railway. But it was not a military target. The occupiers targeted the ordinary Vlasovaya station in the Kharkiv region. The enemy aimed nearly 30 of their drones at it. As a result of the attack on Vlasovaya, 1 person was killed. Another 10 people were injured, including 2 children. And do you remember the information that the main intelligence directorate of Ukraine obtained secret documents about the newest Russian nuclear submarine cruiser Knyaz Pozharsky, which was only commissioned in July of this year?
They obtained classified internal documentation about the newest submarine of the aggressor country, Russia, the strategic nuclear submarine Knyaz Pozharsky, Project 955A Bore A.
And now, as experts told the Times journalists, the documents about the submarine in the hands of Ukraine's main intelligence directorate will undermine the Kremlin's position in the Arctic. After all, the information concerns not only the Knyaz Pozharsky, but all submarines of the 955A project. Russia's nuclear fleet is under threat. Now, any cyber attack, whether on the crew or something else, and since Ukrainians now know where to strike, could lead to the complete paralysis of Russia's nuclear capabilities. Russia is now stepping up its military presence in the Arctic under the guise of scientific research. And the Kremlin plans to further expand its submarine fleet, with some of them to be deployed specifically to the Arctic. But now Ukraine can easily interfere with these plans. Meanwhile, according to sources from the Times of Israel, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is planning to seize the entire territory of the Gaza Strip. Moreover, he has already given the army the corresponding order. The Prime Minister's inner circle has made the following statement. The die is cast, we will occupy Gaza. The Chief of the General Staff may resign if he is opposed to this. At the same time, the government is divided. Politicians close to Netanyahu support this decision. But the army strongly objects, pointing out that destroying Hamas's infrastructure could take years and the fighting would affect areas where hostages are being held. More than half of Germans do not want to fight for their country. This was reported by journalists from The Telegraph. According to the survey, only 16% of German citizens are definitely willing to take up arms in the event of an attack. Another 22% would most likely do so. The remaining 59% said they probably or definitely would not defend the country. As The Telegraph notes, these figures are a blow to the Ministry of Defense's plans to increase the army from 182,000 to 260,000 personnel by 2035, against the backdrop of reforms and rising military spending due to the threat from Russia. They send all Russians into the assault, even those who are severely wounded or on crutches. For example, on the Siversk front, the heroes are no longer happy about their heroism. Let's go. The Rexy have set off. At least 14 soldiers from the Chelyabinsk region who were preparing to be discharged from the army were thrown into battle near Novoselivka. One of them has completely lost movement in his right arm after being wounded. Another soldier had a titanium plate inserted in his head after an injury. The man suffers from fainting spells and vision problems. And one of them has a non-functioning hand.
And so,
all this is for Putin's idea of destroying a neighboring country. Putin is finishing off even his own people. Meanwhile, while Russians on crutches are hopping through the fields, in Chechnya there are more awards again. There, Kadyrov's mother was awarded an order.
by decree of the governor of the Kherson region, for her significant personal contribution to strengthening military cooperation, and for her actions in accomplishing tasks during the special military operation in the territory of the Kherson region.
To award the Order of Merit for the Kherson region, first class, to Aymani Nesyevna Kadyrova.
Applaud.
And Kadyrov's mother and her significant personal contribution to strengthening military cooperation and assisting in accomplishing tasks. She has nothing to do with the war at all. Of course, it's just to please Kadyrov. But that's not all. 17-year-old Adam Kadyrov has received a new position. He is now the curator of aid to the residents of the Gaza Strip from Chechnya. The young lover of a lavish lifestyle will now oversee the collection of donations that Chechen organizations will send to the residents of the Gaza Strip. In other words, he'll be at the center of the corruption. Curtain. I don't even know how to comment on this. Like this video to support what we do, and be sure to subscribe to our channel Ukraine Today so you don't miss future episodes. See you soon.